Hi friends! Ever wonder if it's normal that your urine turns a fluorescent yellow when you take vitamins, or pink when you eat beets? Or if the bubbles in your toilet are normal? Could these be the first sign of kidney disease? Probably not. However, you'll be shocked at what you can learn from looking at your toilet bowl about the health of your kidneys. And why should you even care? Well, because kidney disease is rising, and far too many people are unaware that their kidneys are getting silently injured. And no, this is not a fear-mongering video, but the goal is empowering people to help their kidneys last a lifetime. Now, in this video, let me share with you the number one first sign of kidney disease. But to understand that, let me show you how physicians assess kidney health through the different clues from common labs to vital signs that tell us about your kidney health. Because the key to keeping your kidneys for a lifetime is to understand the simple, common clues that people often ignore. So looking in the toilet bowl is not going to be enough, because believe it or not, your urine probably isn't going to be the first sign of kidney problems. But urinary changes are definitely not signs to miss. And by the way, even though you're given two kidneys, most of us, it doesn't mean that you have a second chance, because whatever is harming the first one is harming the other one at the same time. Now, the kicker is nearly half of all American adults are putting their kidneys at risk, and they don't even know it. But in order to understand the very first and number one sign of kidney disease, you really need a little bit of background about your pee. So sometimes in life, it's good to start from the bottom up. And so let's look in the toilet bowl. Now, it's always a good idea to check the toilet bowl after you use the restroom, because you don't want to find yourself at the doctor's office hearing scary news that your kidneys aren't filtering well, and you had no clue when all along the clues were in the bathroom. Now, unfortunately, this is reality. 9 out of 10 people who have chronic kidney disease, they don't realize their kidneys have been crying for help for years until the damage is too severe to reverse. But getting yourself educated and being proactive can make a world of difference. So how much should you be peeing? Well, it depends on how much fluid you drink and how much you're sweating, how rapidly you're breathing, how much salt and protein you're eating, and whether or not your kidneys and hormones are in optimal function. But your kidneys, they never work alone. They are influenced by your heart, by your lungs, by your prostate, for those of you who have one, and even your liver. And in fact, there's a syndrome called hepatorenal syndrome. It's when a liver is so sick that it causes the kidneys to shut off due to the liver's influence on the body's vascular system. Effectively, it reduces blood flow to the kidneys. And the same thing can happen when people have heart failure. And by the way, don't forget, take a look at this list of medications. See any that are familiar? They commonly cause kidney damage. But don't panic. Most of these medications are prescribed. So that means the prescriber will be checking your kidney function to make sure that you're not having side effects. So if you're not sure about that, make sure you contact your provider. However, take a look at this list of medications. These are all over the counter, and millions of people are on these medications, and a great deal of them, they get kidney injuries every year because they're using them too frequently or too much. Now, remember earlier how your liver can effectively change the fluid status of your blood flow to the kidneys? Well, that's the thing. Your kidneys are very sensitive to blood volume. And what do you think you can consciously change in your blood volume to alter your kidneys? Well, that's your hydration, right? Or if you get dehydrated. So in general, if you drink 2 liters of fluid a day, you'll usually pee 1.5 liters out, and you'll lose the other half a liter through sweating and breathing, or maybe through your stool. And normally, peeing 4 to 8 times a day is pretty typical. But if you find yourself peeing too little, like less than half a liter a day, that may be a signal that you're really dehydrated, or there's a problem with your kidneys, or your prostate, or even your bladder. And on the other hand, if you find yourself peeing quite often, frequency in urination, that could be due to a number of items as well. Maybe it's your medications, especially if you're on a diuretic, or if you're eating excessive sodium sodium. That makes people lose water or even excessive protein, or drinking excessive liquids. And there's other molecules. If they're not in balance, it can make you lose water too, like too much sugar in the blood or hormonal imbalances. Or maybe you just have an irritated bladder where it's infected. So lots of people have prediabetes or diabetes. And when you have high blood sugar levels, when it's not under control, your urine is a way for your body to remove the sugar. But that means you're going to pee out more water. You'll get more dehydrated if you don't keep up the fluid. And you find yourself urinating in the middle of the night, then that may be something you should see your provider about to make sure you're not having blood sugar issues. Urinary frequency is a telltale sign that there's a blood sugar problem, or maybe there could be diabetes or urinary tract infection, or maybe even prostate issues. And when you notice a change in your urine, don't panic. Talk to your medical provider. The solution could be simpler than you think. If you have frequent urinary tract infections, you may be very familiar with getting a urinalysis. This is a quick and easy screen to look for infections or kidney disease or metabolic conditions and people's hydration status. And in the old days, before we had test strips, doctors would examine the urine for color, clarity, and odor. And at one point, doctors even tasted people's urine. Yeah, that's a pretty nasty thought, and I'm glad we stopped doing that. But now we use a chemical dipstick, which you can actually order online. And the dipstick checks a number of different metabolic markers that changes with people's diets, as well as their hydration status and their overall health, as well as the health of their urinary tract system. If you eat more acidic foods like amino acids, protein, because you're on a carnivore diet, or if you're fasting, or if you're on a ketogenic diet, eating more fat, your body has to expel all those acids and the ketones. Therefore, your urine gets more acidic, which increases your risk of getting uric acid and cysteine kidney stones. And a big contributing factor for why people get stones is because when you lose all those acids, you're actually getting dehydrated. And anytime you're urinating more water out than you're actually replenishing in your body, that dehydration really pulls and solidifies minerals. Blood flow is super critical in keeping your kidneys healthy. And it ties into the number one sign of kidney injury that I'll tell you a little later. Definitely picking up stones is not going to help your kidneys. And your diet is super critical in determining whether or not you're going to be developing kidney stones. It just so happens that people who eat a predominantly whole food, plant-based diet, that they can actually alkalinize your urine and reduce the risk of getting kidney stones. Ever look in the toilet after peeing and notice bubbles in the bowl? I mentioned earlier that this is a sign of kidney problems, but normal pee can still have a little bit of bubbling. You know, if you're standing up so far from the toilet and then letting it out like a waterfall, of course you're going to get some bubbles. But foamy urine may be a sign of protein loss, which could represent that there is a kidney issue. Now, have you ever noticed that the ocean makes bubbles after a wave crashes? And normally water bubbles pop right away. But in the sea, they actually last, they foam, and they even cover the shoreline. Why is that? Well, it's because tiny proteins from the algae and the plankton, they coat these bubbles and they keep the bubbles alive. Now, think about your morning coffee. You can actually froth coffee or froth milk, but you can't froth plain water, right? And again, the reason is because of protein. Proteins, maybe you use some fats, they help stabilize the bubbles. They hold the foam together so it lasts long enough for you to enjoy your latte. And that's why you can basically make cream out of aquafaba. Your urine, though, should have almost zero protein. But when the kidneys start leaking protein, you'll notice that you'll have more bubbles in your urine. It'll look foamy. That's kind of strange, but it feels harmless. But it could be one of those clues that you don't want to miss about your kidneys. And just like the ocean waves or your cup of coffee lattes, foam doesn't happen without protein. And in the urine, that protein doesn't belong there. Proteinuria, or loss of protein in the urine, is abnormal. And it usually means either there is a kidney filtering problem that may be leaky, the glomerulus may be leaking, or the tubules are not absorbing it, or there could be a downstream bladder problem as well. And sometimes it's because people have diabetes or high blood pressure or kidney inflammation from an infection. And by the way, no, you won't pee out more protein just because you eat more protein. When you eat protein, your gut gut, it breaks it down into amino acids, basic building blocks of proteins. And those acids, they're supposed to be used to repair your muscles, to make enzymes and hormones and other tissue. However, if you overeat, well, then that amino acid, the nitrogens, is stripped away by the liver and turned into a molecule called urea. And then that is excreted in the urine. Now, the rest of the carbon skeleton, it's burned for energy or it's stored as fat. So yes, you can get fat by eating excessive protein. And in healthy kidneys, you may be excreting more nitrogen waste or urea when you eat excessive protein. But remember, you're not excreting your own body's whole protein. And your kidneys, they are very good at filtering out protein when it's healthy.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
Excessive protein, however, it still does stress the system, even if you're not leaking protein, because all that protein, it raises your urea load in your body and the load that your kidneys have to handle. So urea, whenever the body's trying to excrete it, will draw out water. So people get dehydrated. And sometimes the volume may be so high that you have a foamy urine. Now, long term, this actually can cause kidney strain, especially if you already have reduced kidney function. And the only way to know is to see your own medical provider and have some urine and blood work. And the thing is, even though you're not directly losing protein, you are still getting dehydrated. And that by itself is vital to keeping your kidneys healthy. So people who eat an excessive amount of protein are going to put their kidneys at risk just from dehydration. And if you have a severe loss of protein in your kidneys, that's actually called nephrotic syndrome. Nephrotic syndrome leads to worsening kidney damage. Protein is what helps people keep their blood flow. If you can't keep your blood flow, then your kidneys will get damaged. Your urine is full of clues. Sometimes your urine may be pink tinged, which may mean that there's some blood. And for women, that could just maybe be mixed with your menstrual period. But it could also mean bleeding from the bladder or the kidneys. And that's not normal. Your kidneys don't allow blood cells to leave, at least not healthy kidneys. However, when it's stressed, it can have leaky glomeruli. Stresses can be from stones or infections, or the kidney can even get cancer. Now, unexplained bleeding requires a cystoscopy or a surgeon or a physician to put a camera through the tubes of the urinary tract to visually take a look at the bladder and the urethra. And when the urine looks brown, this may suggest that there may be some old blood or maybe even bilirubin leaking out, which may point upstream to a liver problem. And sometimes your urine looks completely normal, yet you still may have hidden kidney disease. And that's why it's super important to get an annual checkup from your doctor for early detection. And some of you, well, you may think, well, you have two kidneys. So if one poops out, you still have a backup. Nah, unfortunately, whatever causes the first one to be stressed out, the second one will be stressed out at the same rate too. Now, there are always exceptions, like kidney cancer in one of the kidneys and not in the other. But the reason for the cancer could be still persistent, which is very commonly maybe from high blood pressure. So that means the other kidney is still at risk unless a high blood pressure is controlled. Prevention, early detection, and intervention are key because the kidneys, they can't repair itself. The only option for us is to protect them from getting worse. Now, here's what I mean. Let's take you back when you were a tiny little baby held in your parents' arms, right? Did you know that babies, even though they seem so fragile and underdeveloped, that their kidneys are at its maximum capacity when they're born. Now, even though the child still needs to grow and expand, and even the kidneys get bigger, and it's just kind of like the amount of eggs in a female baby. And how well your filters work is measured by a number called the glomerular filtration rate. And the higher your glomerular filtration rate, the healthier the kidneys are. Now, at birth, each kidney literally has millions of filters inside called nephrons, unless you're born prematurely. And hence the importance of trying to carry your baby to term. Now, each nephron begins with a glomerulus, a tiny tuft of capillaries that filters blood plasma. Now, that means one nephron is one glomeruli. Now, the typical newborn has probably like 800,000 to 1,500,000 nephrons per kidney. So if you add the two together, they roughly have 2 to 3 million total nephrons in both kidneys. And the thing is, your nephron number is fixed at birth, just like a female's eggs. You don't grow any more nephrons later. Once they're lost, they are gone forever. And when you don't have enough nephrons, it puts you at higher risk of having high blood pressure and kidney disease. And if you developed persistent high blood pressure as an adult, you will also lose nephrons more quickly. Now, hence it's important to control your blood pressure. Now, I've already talked about a lot of signs of kidney disease, but I think that the most important sign that I mentioned, the number one sign that a person has kidney damage, is persistent high blood pressure. And the most important kidney saving thing you can do is to get your blood pressure normal at all times. Now, I know I can hear it. Skeptics are saying, I feel fine, even though my blood pressure has been high for years. And that's the thing, right? Or that it's pretty close to normal. And I believe I mentioned earlier that you won't feel anything or see the damage in your urine until the kidney is pretty severely damaged. And in fact, your kidney can function pretty normally with only about 50% of nephrons. So this is why a person can donate one kidney and still live a normal life with only one kidney. But when your nephron gets to about 25 to 40%, the remaining nephrons, they hyperfiltrate. They're overcompensating and they get bigger. So they're hypertrophying. But then your blood pressure, it starts creeping up because the kidney is less able to handle the sodium and blood volume. And this is a first stage where you might have some borderline high blood pressure or leakage of protein, microalbuminuria, which is a type of protein that keeps your blood volume. And usually it's not till after 50% of the nephrons are gone that then your creatinine rises and your glomerular filtration rates start dropping. Now, critically, if you have persistent high blood pressure, some people may actually start losing blood cells, get a mild anemia, because your kidneys are supposed to secrete hormones that talk to your bone marrow to keep your blood cells at a normal level. And when your kidneys go, the electrolyte shifts begin. And when you've lost 75% of your nephrons, then you have chronic kidney disease. Usually, you will also have high blood pressure and be anemic and have mineral loss in your bone. Now, when over 90% of the nephrons are lost, that's end-stage renal disease, and that requires dialysis or a kidney transplant. And this is why high blood pressure is the first most important clue that your kidneys are losing nephrons. And if your blood pressure remains high, then all you're doing is killing off nephrons, even though you don't feel it. And this is a silent process. You're not going to feel anything until most of your nephrons are gone. And then you can't get rid of the water so that you start swelling. You may become short of breath. When your nephrons get leaky, you will see clues in your urine. You will also feel bad. You'll have mood swings and maybe personality changes. You may be more irritable or anxious or grumpy because your kidneys filter toxins. And sometimes people can't recognize their family or their friends. That's what happens when your kidneys absolutely don't work. But that takes years, sometimes decades to get to that point. Your kidney health is like a credit card debt. You don't feel that you're in credit card debt until the debt collectors start calling you. And you're not going to feel kidney problems until the very end. And I used to believe that it's okay because we have a backup dialysis. But the problem is dialysis wipes out a lot of people's energy as well as time. You spend hours, half the week getting dialyzed. And then you need time to recover from the dialysis. And on top of that, dialysis catheters, they put people at high risk for bloodstream infections and sepsis. And when you do get kidney damage, the diet has to change so dramatically because you can't filter just normal things like electrolytes. Far too many people underestimate how persistent high blood pressure can be very damaging to the kidneys. Blood pressure to your kidneys are akin to water pressure to your house. Now, my friend recently bought an old house in the city of Corona, California, and apparently there's lots of water damage because some pipes busted, silently busted, And it went on for years without the last homeowners fixing it. So now that they're new homeowners, they have to redo some of the piping and get rid of the mold and mildew. And the thing is, they didn't have a water pressure regulator in their house. If you've had any water damage before, you know it's a silent process until it's not. And high blood pressure is essentially water pressure damaging your kidneys. But it's not limited to your kidneys. It damages everything from the bottom of your toes to the top of your brain. Now, I'm not telling you this to scare you. These are simple facts that will happen whether or not you do anything about it. It's like gravity, which will always pull you towards the earth whether or not you believe it. So when you fall, you will always land towards the earth, and that could be pretty painful depending on how far you are from the earth when you fall, right? In this day and age with affordable home blood pressure machines, there really should be no reason that people don't check their blood pressures to make sure they have normal blood pressure. I mean, some insurance companies will even reimburse people for blood pressure machines at home. And unfortunately, your body, it doesn't have its built-in blood pressure regulator valve so that it can't help you sense that and alert you and then adjust it, right? You have to adjust that by what you eat. And the way to get high blood pressure is what I mentioned before: eating excessive sodium, eating excessive protein, having excessive blood sugars. But the right foods and even medications, they can help to control blood pressure. And unfortunately, medications, they should be used as a bridge, but people use them as a lifelong enabler to continue eating poorly. And some of these medications, ironically, harm the kidneys too. But don't stop anything. It's important that you talk to your own medical doctor if you have any questions about your medicines or how you can change your diet so you can get off your medications. And too many people, they don't take their medications for one reason or another. But medications really should be a lifeline, not a forever thing if you don't need it, right? And if you don't take it regularly, well, you don't get steady state levels. Taking blood pressure medications sporadically isn't very effective. But if you don't take your medications, don't be surprised your blood pressure will go up and down, which will still put pressure on your kidneys and potentially damage it. And even though I try to avoid medications, it is the quickest way to immediately lower your blood pressure at the same day, potentially even a few minutes to hours. However, for the long-term goal, we should be looking at our diet and nutrition. And believe it or not, if you go all in, you could probably lower your blood pressure in a matter of a couple of days. It's not immediate, but it's not that long. But just getting 80% of your diet right is a start. But you may not see dramatic changes until you get 100% of your diet right. And I agree, the goal should be to improve and keep on improving and keep on improving. But it's like getting F to a C grade or an F to a B grade or an F to an A plus grade, right? The A plus achiever is going 110%. They are going all in. And everybody else, if you're okay settling for less and taking those medications, and that's what you need to do to get better, then give yourself that patience. But just don't expect your kidneys to not suffer damage while it's waiting for you to figure out how to control your blood pressure. And remember, it's important to not manage these medications on your own. Talk to your own medical doctors, because depending on what you are willing to do with your lifestyle and diet, that will totally dictate how much medications you're on and how fast your doctor can get you off those medications. And I'm sure you know that not all foods are created equal. And if you want to learn the best foods for your blood flow, watch the next video.